I don't know, man. I hope it worked. I think it did.
Whoa, here we are.
Look at that.
This is
New
crazy,
and
man.
improved. Nothing's different for anyone at home.
Yeah, it's totally. This is new ground for us. I couldn't hear the intro music that whole
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, no,
So
I know. That was I can't, and maybe it's because you're in heaven right now.
is it because I'm so pale? Is that a joke you're
It's a
making?
joke I'm making because you are
'Cause I look-
it's because you're so bright right now. It's not even a pale joke. It's just because you're so very
Oh,
bright.
exposed. So here's what I figured
You look
out.
like
Like
an
it's
angel.
all right.
Did you say
Um,
dang because you're dangling Drew?
because you're dangling Drew. So this is what I figured out. It's got to be a setting with the camera, and it's not a setting I can adjust because of the camera. There are no adjustments. But like, so I did like a video the other day with my old DSLR,
Yeah.
and I looked totally normal with the exact same lighting in the exact same position.
I'm
This
gonna
camera
tell you exactly what you need to do, and I figured it out. I figured it out today. Or I figured it out
get
yesterday because
in
I was
the sun.
vitamin D, man. For good God's sakes. No, what you need to do is, so I figured it out with my camera because I was. Oh, look at that.
Look
A
at that! It
$10
popped up on the
Lucas Shashak
screen. That's so
donated
exciting. You can
$10.
see them again.
Salute.
I love that.
So what you don't know is we actually have an Australian man named Russell reading out our super chats and Streamlabs donations of above $10.
No,
Yeah. So there
Really?
you go. Right now we have
Fairs Mutana donated $10. Put the bunny back in the
wait,
box.
but I
He's
can't
saying,
hear
"Put the
them.
bunny back in the books," but you can't hear it, which is a bummer because we're not in the same room. That's the problem. Is like that was the thing. So they can hear it on the stream, and I can hear it, and I'm enjoying it. So looks like you just got to come
Wait,
back.
hang on.
What?
You shut up. I'm gonna watch the stream
Don't you
and
tell
I'm
me.
gonna hear it happen
Okay.
right now because I'm so curious. But here it is.
Fires me on $10. Put the bunny back in the box.
That's pretty funny, man.
Pretty good, man. See, it's good because they're never gonna stop.
Jeremiah Morris donated
Hear this one.
$10. Ben Bateman sucks.
Says Ben Bateman sucks. I'll just read them out for you since you can't hear the computer say it.
That's
Is
very,
that
very
better?
funny.
Is that good? We are losing. We're gaining money. We're losing viewers.
I'm just watching myself now. Okay, this is awkward. I'm just watching myself telling you to shut up so I can watch the stream. That was satisfying to watch.
All right. So why are we here today? We're here to talk about. All right. Maybe I should turn them off. Should I turn them off?
Munsung86 donated $1. Too slow.
I want to
I
hear
missed
them,
the first
and
one.
I
Bummer.
feel this. It's a fail because I can't hear.
I
But
mean,
it's-
well, here's the thing. Here's what we can do. You can hear them, but then you can't see me, and I know how much you love to see me, Ben. So it's up to you, man. You gotta pick one or the other here. I'll share my screen with you, but then I gotta maximize it again. So now you can't see me, which I know you don't really care about, but you'll be able to hear.
Well, I can still see you on here.
Oh yeah, as long as I have this open. But it's got that little
the
delay
screen
we're
share.
talking about. We should not be talking about this. We should be talking about Con Air.
We're so good at broadcasting.
We are.
We told you guys this was going to be a seamless new setup, and it is.
I mean,
Yes.
realistically, has been seamless. It's just we're just excited about it.
Yeah, we're very excited. So this is the greatest movie ever made. It's our weekly show. We talk about the greatest movies ever made, and this week it is the movie Con Air, a movie that for whatever reason I'm convinced is
Lucas
directed by somebody
Shashak
named
donated
Dominic Sena.
$10.
It's not.
Two
Pretty sure
production
Dominic Sena
notes so
directed
far.
Swordfish.
Drew's audio
Fake.
is way lower than Ben's,
This
and
is
Ash was
directed
barely
by
noticeable on camera with
Something
that
West.
pro ninja
Who
move.
directed this movie?
Simon West.
Simon West.
Yeah.
And this is regarded by most people as the fake Michael Bay movie. Like most people think this is a Michael Bay movie.
Well, what I think is so interesting about. All right, we're gonna have to turn them off. We're gonna have to do it.
Jeremiah Morris donated
People are just being
$10.
too generous.
Ben
They're too
Bateman
gen-
sucks. Can you hear me?
Ben Bateman sucks. Can you hear me? Did you hear that?
No, I wish.
They're saying I'm a lot quieter than you, but it has my microphone like peaking right now. So I don't know,
Now
guys.
you sound very loud to me. So
All right. Well, good. What's happening right now? What is happening?
I don't know, man. People are having too much fun with their.
We introduced it. Now I know how Ellis felt that first day.
I know he was like bamboozled. He was
actually
flabbergasted.
upset. He was like actually
yeah.
upset. Okay, so those are some donations. We can actually we can maybe get to them if we actually need to, since they were already read aloud. The whole point of it was supposed to surprise you, but then anyway. Long story short, this movie is the thing about this is it really feels like Simon here is what Michael Bay's career, or he's the guy that should have had Michael Bay's career. That's what, in my opinion, what happened here. I think that Simon West does all the things that Michael Bay does without being as racist or as sexist, and like, but he also brings all the things you love: the sweet music, the awesome lighting. The Michael Bay is better at action though, because when you go back and you watch this movie, the action is kind of, it's all right.
Yeah, it's like slow-mo and like very predictable. It's like just rings of 90s, like big budget 90s action movies. There's like not a whole lot to it. But yeah, I do think that this movie has like lived on and really had its own life now as like sort of this. And I was just saying it on a general chat just before we started, but like has really lived on and had this life of sort of like one of those most iconic, ridiculous 90s action movies. It's this like unicorn of a movie, where I really think that if you would put anybody else in this movie other than Nic Cage doing that accent with that hair, like as jacked as he is, I think this movie becomes so much more generic. Like if this is Bruce Willis, this movie is just like Executive Decision or like some other forgettable 90s action movie.
So I'm curious if like it actually makes it a better movie, because I know that I don't think anyone could have done what Nic Cage does in this movie the way that he does it, obviously. I mean, that's why he's Nic Cage. But do you think that maybe bringing someone else to it that maybe takes themselves a bit more seriously could have made the movie any better? Or do you think this movie was just kind of what it was because of the director and because of the script and everything?
So I think that there's a level to this movie that like knows exactly what it's doing. I think, okay, and we're going to talk all about the sort of like genesis of this movie and when it came out, the year and sort of all of that a little bit later in the show. But I really do think that when this hit in 1997, we were in this sort of peak of 90s action movies in this way that like since Top Gun in 86, there had to be this sort of combination of like action and violence. And like they were even starting to really dial in the formula, right? You look at like literally, I think it's the same year or the year before, Air Force One, where you've got Gary Oldman as the villain. In the Line of Fire has John Malkovich as the villain, getting an Oscar nomination in 93. In the 90s, that was the thing. You make a big budget action movie, you cast Ed Harris as the villain, and you get what you want. You get like a really terrifying villain because they're an Oscar-worthy performer with some up-and-comer hotshot. And so Malkovich doing his Cyrus thing here is like a pretty convincing, pretty compelling bad guy. But Cameron Poe has this absurd accent, and he's saying all these one-liners that are like, nobody writing the script, reading the script, or editing the movie can be taking those seriously because they're absurd. They're silly one-liners. So like, I think they're way more aware of what this movie is than people realize now. They think this is like an overly bad action movie and it's like bad good. But I think it's totally clear when they were making it, they knew what they were making.
Okay, so I agree with everything that you're saying. I want to talk to the chat here because they're saying I'm too loud, I'm too quiet. I want to know where we're at right now so that we can just move on with the show. So guys, let us know in the chat where we're at, and let's start moving through our outline here, Ben. The first thing that we usually do is we watch a trailer. It's not a great trailer. I'll be honest. It's really not a great trailer. It's old, classic, but it's 90s. So I don't know. You ready? You ready for it?
I'm very excited about it.
Okay. All right, Ben. All right.
And Drew is blue again.
I wanted to be blue. Nope. Of course. You wish I was blue again. I think that'll work.
This is also like the perfect era for the trailer too. 97, like it's.
I don't know why it's not working right now. It's all right. We'll just keep doing this all day, man.
You're like Captain America. We could do this all day.
He's a U.S. Ranger.
Yeah, I could, except for. Oh man, this is all working so great just a minute ago. You know what I'm saying? And then the sound.
I do.
All right, let's try it one more time. I think this is it. Nope, not gonna do it.
So we're gonna ditch the trailer. We're gonna move on to the outline.
So.
I think it's fun. Well, as you said, it's not that great of a trailer. I mean,
oh wait, here we go.
Actually,
see it?
I can't.
Highly decorated.
See it? Yeah.
Yep. Sorry about that.
Did a little hell raising when he was a kid, but nothing serious.
Can't hear it though.
He's defending his wife. Got in a drunken brawl. And he killed a guy. Could have happened to you or me.
Everyone says my audio is
After
great, but
serving
you
the last of his
can't hear the
sentence,
trailer.
Cameron Poe
I cannot
is
hear the
taking
trailer.
the first
Well,
plane
you know what, Ben?
home to his wife and daughter.
Scrap it then, since you're
Today's
just
flight-
sitting there and, it's not working.
It's fair, and I think we have a strong outline, and also on top of having that, I think we have some opinions on what the way this movie feels like a trailer in the first 10 minutes that we should talk about.
Yeah, let's just do that.
I think it's funny. So let me pull up the outline. But what I was basically saying, and I called you last night about this because I was laughing as I was watching this movie. Like, it feels like the first 10 minutes of this movie, when it starts, it is like a trailer for the movie Con Air. Like, it starts out.
Yeah, it's just a trailer.
Right? Because like he's like, even thinking about it now, I can almost not think about the first 10 minutes. It feels like it's 1 minute. He's like in the army saluting, and it's like you're hearing a voiceover that's like, he was a good soldier.
Well, it's like it's like his graduation speech from the Rangers. It's like, never leave a man behind. The highest honors you've been trained to do. Da, 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 da. It's like you're getting the hero qualifier in the first few minutes.
Everything you need. It's like he's done. He's going home. You see his pretty wife, and she's working at a bar. You know, humble
pregnant.
beginnings. Oh, she's waiting for him. You see some tough guys, and you're like, oh man, this is trouble. And she says to him, she's like,
What does the guy say? He's like, I'd take a beating. It's half my life for touch that woman or something like that. And you're like, he's gonna be trouble. This guy's going to be trouble.
And what's he say? It's pussies like you is why we lost Vietnam. You're like, oh man, he's really going for it.
It really is.
And then she's like, for a second there, I saw that guy again. And so then you hear the voiceover. It's like, but he has a temper. You know, like he's like, he's a good man, but he's dangerous.
It's so absurd that he goes to jail for what he does.
Yeah.
Like, he literally gets jumped by 3 dudes outside of a bar when he's with his wife, and one of them pulls a knife on him, and he goes to jail. And they're like, because you're a ranger, your body's a deadly weapon. They just explain it in like 10 seconds. His lawyer is just like, just take the plea, man. Just fuck it. Just take the plea. Just go to jail.
Dude, he also says, because of your training, you are not subject to the same laws as other men because your body is a deadly weapon.
Deadly weapon. Yep, that's exactly what he says.
It's like, what?
The other thing that I realized about this movie and going back and watching it again, I'm pretty sure this movie didn't like trick a lot of people in the 90s. It feels like it was probably just, it feels like it's an R-rated movie for kids. Because when I was a kid, I loved this movie. And like as an adult, I recognize that I like this movie because I liked it as a kid. And like, that's basically it. I mean, there's so much great in this because of how much I love Nic Cage and stuff. But like, if you look at this as a true great film, it lacks a lot of things that, I don't know, something like maybe Shawshank Redemption or The Godfather would have. But I enjoy it so much. Like, I enjoy every minute of this movie.
This is your Point Break, right? Like every minute to you just feels like poetry. Every word, right?
Everyone that's cast in this movie, yes, every exchange, the setup, the prison cell, everything. All right, it's good. So let's keep going.
Yeah. So it is funny to me. That seems to be sort of how the movie starts. You're watching, and like 10 minutes in, you get the really bad Con Air logo. It's like very bad computer graphics, and like
I thought it
like
looked
all
good.
right, yeah. Like I said, this is starting, and like the cast in this movie, dude, is a murderer's row. It's like, I mean, of 90s people, and we're going to go through all those different guys. But so coming up today on the show, we are going to be talking about the elevator pitch of this movie. You had to sell this movie to somebody in 30 seconds, and you wanted to convince them to watch it. What are you going to tell them? We are going to talk a little bit about the Cage run. So, like, he does those 3 legendary action movies in 96 and 97, and then his next couple years they're fine. Like, it's the only like sort of weak part of his 90s. But what if he had done 3 more hits? Like, what would those movies be? So we're going to look at some of those. Each Drew and I are going to pitch our trio. We're really excited about doing that. Fist bump moment, favorite line, all the fun stuff that we normally do. But we have a couple Patreon shout outs to do really quickly before we get into the rest of the show. So we have new members who are a part of the Army. We've got Louis Cerisa, Matt Dunavant, Spencer Hunt, Jackson Latner, Jonathan Nixon, Rogue Star 98, Molly S., Shoeshine, Terry Stockwell, and Trilema.
I'll be honest. I feel like we've shouted out Trilemma like 50 times.
It's totally conceivable, man. I probably didn't mark the document a couple times, so
I'm pretty sure Trilemma's been shouted out at least 5 times by us, but I'm okay to keep doing it. I don't mind.
So those are classic patrons. Then we've got Davlin, just Sergeant upgraded a couple days ago. Davlin's been a part of the Action Army Patreon for a couple years now. He sent us this really sweet email. from back when we used to do those top 5 lists in the secret headquarters.
Yeah,
And he was like, I wrote this once, but I wasn't confident, so I didn't send it then. And he still had it written, and so he sent this long email of this top 5 list. It was very cool to read. It was a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, I looked over that as well.
Yeah, and then Charles Kim is a brand new corporal in the Army as well. So big time salute to Davlin and Charles Kim. Thank you guys so much. So let's get into elevator pitch, man. Like if somebody's like Con Air, why do I need to watch Con Air? Like what is it? Why does this movie matter? What do you say?
All right, look. So hear me out here. Nic Cage just won his Oscar, and then he goes on a triumphant run. The perfect trifecta of 3 action movies. Now everyone talks about Face Off. Everyone talks about The Rock. But not enough people talk about Con Air, which is truly, truly a gem of its own. Now, what is Con Air? Now, Nic Cage, he's a ranger that has been trained. He's a deadly weapon. But he kills a man defending his wife's honor in a bar fight the day he gets home and he goes to jail. He gets released on good behavior, but what happens? He gets placed on a plane with maximum security, the worst prisoners in the world. He's just on a ride home. He's just trying to get home. But what happens? He gets tangled in a web of deceit and lies. But he's the inside man for the DEA, the FBI, and John Cusack. John Cusack, incredible performance in this movie. You got to watch it. You got to check it out. If you've seen the other 2, this is the third to create the trifecta.
It's strong. It's very strong. I would boil it down to even less information than that. This is the greatest hair Nic Cage has ever had in a film. This is the movie that if you were writing that stupid song, Cool Guys Walk Away from Explosions, this is like the movie it's based on. Like every single action movie cliche you could possibly think of in an action movie is this movie. It's literally all of them in the movie. And it knows it's doing it. And it does it better than most of the movies that are even doing it unintentionally. It is the perfect blueprint for a ridiculous 90s action movie. It's the movie Michael Bay wishes he could have made but never did. And if you haven't seen it, you're missing an essential piece of an entire decade of film.
I just don't understand how this, like, Nic Cage, did he just not realize that when he looked at these 2 movies, he was like, these are the same movie. One's just on Alcatraz and the other one's on a plane. I'm in.
Well, okay, so you remember when we had John Sheck on Action Movie Anatomy and we were talking about this run? Because we were laughing about it with him, and he was saying that it's really it's a good team. Like that's the reason that Cage was able to rip this off the way that he did. It's like a really good team behind him, putting him up for the right things, picking the right projects for him. And I think it's kind of true. Like if you look at the choices that Cage has made in his career, he's by no means had there's a lot of careers that are better than Cage's career.
Yeah.
But he's had a brilliantly unique career. Like massive A-list movie star, no question. In the time this movie came out, how many movie stars do you think were bigger than Nic Cage in 1997 that like could have headlined the movie?
Bigger than Nic Cage? I mean, not many bigger. There was a lot on his same level, like because there's moments, right, where you literally are just the most famous person.
Yeah.
Or like you're like all at the same, Leo might not be the most famous person, but there's no one more famous than him right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It feels like thinking during that time, because this is like the heyday of us growing up. Like we're basically 10 years old here. If I think about this time, it's like Willis is on his same level.
Yep.
Gibson probably in 97 because he had Bravehearts 2 years before this. Cruise, Mission Impossible, and Jerry Maguire were the year before this.
Yep.
Probably Denzel's not there yet because he doesn't become action movie.
He is. I mean, he's got to be because they reference him in this movie.
They're looking at Denzel. Yeah,
I think he's that's pretty big. I think what it was is, I mean, as much as it kind of sucks. Is back in the 90s there was like not that many black leading men. And Denzel was probably the like main guy that it's like. I mean, it's clear again if he's not as even close to as famous as he is now, and they reference him then. It just goes to speak on what Hollywood was like in the 90s.
Yeah, I think it's about like opening movies. Like, can you be the star of a bad movie and have it make a lot of money? And I think that's like where Cage was at this moment. And that's why there's so few people that were on his level. Like, I remember like there's some like joke in the early 2000s where it's like, the type of movies that they'd only go out to the Toms for, it's like Hanks and Cruise, right? Like there was like that short list of guys. And so I definitely think that trifecta of action movies and this one sort of happening when it happens. Because I think this is the third one to come out. I can't remember if this is the second one or the third one. But I know it and Face Off are in theaters at the same time, which is remarkable. Can you imagine going to a movie theater and currently seeing up on the, like, I can see Face Off or I can see Con Air right now. I can
just do a double feature and see 2 of my favorite action movies of all time.
ever. Like, that's outrageous.
I still firmly put Face Off actually in third place.
And I actually think that now, like all time, the general opinion is that Face Off is 1, which is incorrect, I think.
Yeah, The Rock is 100% number 1, and I understand that most people probably put then Face Off number 2. But Con Air, man, I just love it. I just love it.
Look, on the Action Industries Twitter this morning, I tweeted like, this is the holy trinity of Nic Cage action movies, and if you woke up tomorrow and only one existed, which one would you pick? Which one, is the only one you could get? And like, a lot of people were saying The Rock because of General Hummel. And I think that's probably a little bit of our audience has that bias. But if you told me 2 of these movies were going to get incinerated into fire and never be around again, I would be devastated, man. I could make an argument for all 3 of these movies just needing to exist. They're all so important.
I think I think again, exactly what obviously if I put Face Off third, that's what I have to eliminate. But thinking of not having these movies is super, super devastating because it's just such an interesting run. Why do this right after winning an Oscar? Is it just because that you can't do that other thing forever? Is it like we've seen all these guys take turns in their career where they turn to action? Literally almost everyone you just mentioned, that is like Cruise, Denzel, where they start drama and then they turn to action.
Yeah, it is a bizarre thing that he did 3. And like you think about, okay, so Leaving Las Vegas is 95. And I think it's definitely not a director that most people are very aware. Is his name Mike Figgis? Is that I think he's some indie director. He's not somebody who's
are you talking about of Leaving Las Vegas? Yeah, something like that.
And like Nic Cage talks about that movie, and it was like a total surprise that it was the hit that it was, right? And it really only is a notable movie because he won the Oscar for it. But prior to 95, it's not like Nic Cage has like 91 to 94. He's got a bunch of like all-time action movies. Like he's in movies people like, right? Like Raising Arizona or Rumblefish, but Amos and Andrew. But the thing is, like, I think Vampire's Kiss, is that the movie he does right before this run? I think it is.
I think so. It's weird because like he is a leading man already, but it's almost like why? But he's always tried to separate himself from his family name. But it's just crazy to think of the way that he kind of took those steps and how quickly he just became a leading man.
Totally. So it's a Kiss of Death is the one from 95. If you guys look up the cover to Kiss of Death, it's one of the other Nic Cage movies where he's jacked. He's like super yoked. And that's like an action movie from 1995 that he does. No one has ever heard of it really. He does Leaving Las Vegas. The weird thing about this is The Rock comes out in 1996 and it's almost like they knew he was going to be the biggest star. Yep. And it feels like it happens overnight. Because if you go look at the stuff before Kiss of Death, it's not like he's primed to go be this guy. But in the course of what feels like a year, he becomes the same level as all the guys we just mentioned. He becomes as big as Tom Cruise.
Well, it's interesting because there's definitely been moments in history where, I'm kind of going to contradict myself. But it almost felt like in the 90s when you won an Oscar, I don't know, maybe I'm just making this up. You know how there's that thing where like when you win an Oscar, it feels like everyone pays attention to you for a while. Like in the 90s, it felt like winning an Oscar was almost different than winning an Oscar now. Someone can win an Oscar now for a performance and then just not be in a movie for years. Yeah. We've seen that happen. But I think that actually probably did happen in the 90s as well. It's just interesting. I don't know if maybe his team was like, all right, because they wouldn't have known. I don't know. It's insane to think of how it all came together.
Right, totally, dude. It feels like the whole experience does feel sort of like an enigma because, like,
it's the Illuminati, man. He's a Coppola.
I mean, there is some truth to the fact that he's a Coppola having an impact. I do think that that's a real thing. People paying attention, this is Francis Ford Coppola's nephew. Like, he's making a name for himself, and he had been in movies since the mid '80s. Like, pretty notably.
Specifically changed his name to not be affiliated with them, but you still get in rooms. You still get the auditions. You still get the small roles. All those things happen because of that name. And maybe that's why he was just put in position to succeed over and over again. And honestly, when he was succeeding, if you go back and you watch Raising Arizona, what is that, 87?
Sounds about right, yeah.
It's like 87 Cage is kind of weird and kind of quirky in that movie, and it kind of fits perfectly in with the Coen brothers writing and Holly Hunter in there. But then you go into the 90s, and Nic Cage and what Nic Cage is and what he does is perfectly suited for the 90s. It's over the top. It's big. It's crazy. It's eccentric. It's like why Brad Pitt gets nominated for 12 Monkeys. It's like, I think he's good in that movie, but I don't think you go and watch that and you're like, oh my God, what an auteur. What a nuanced performance, you know? It's just like you're kind of crazy.
It's like back in the 90s, the idea of a really handsome guy being able to be crazy was like so enchanting.
How does he do that? Has he seen how good he looks?
In the 90s, and I would even argue the early 2000s, yeah, it's like the go act crazy or play somebody with like a disability is like that's like the path to an Oscar for a lot of people, and you would see it, and that's why like RDJ with his whole speech that you never go full soloist in Tropic Thunder is kind of about that. Like it's kind of about the idea that if people were like they didn't see through it yet, I guess in the 90s, like they hadn't figured out yet that like every studio is trying to win their actors Oscars. And if you win an Oscar, the movie's worth more money. And then the next release is worth more money.
Yep.
So we're all playing this politics game. And then again, like Simple Jack is about that. Like that's the whole idea of that part of the movie. And so, it is funny what you say that Cage, but also interesting though, that Cage only ever played crazy. He was never, Cage never played somebody with a disability, right? That's not something that Cage ever did. Not that I can think of it.
I'm not sure. I can't speak on that.
Yeah, I don't think he ever has, which somehow I find totally surprising. It feels like that would be something that Cage at some point in his career would have just like gone for, and then it would have been like a disaster. Like I feel like that's like a disaster that would have happened that we all would have known about. But I guess that
maybe it was one that he like snuck by. I don't know. All right, so let's get to the next segment, man. This is an exciting one for me.
So fist pump moment, something we've been doing since the very beginning of Action Movie Anatomy, has carried to this show. It's the biggest moment in the movie. Something huge happens, something just unbelievable. You're so excited. You want to call your buddy, be like, dude, pick up the phone. You pick up the phone. It turns to 17 minutes into the movie. It could be anything. It can be an explosion, a one-liner, a touching look between father and son, whatever you want it to be. And I'm going to let you take it away on this one first.
Dude, this movie has the greatest villain qualifier of all time. It is a brilliant 2+ minute monologue delivered by John Cusack. He shits on Cole Meany, and he also describes every single one of these horrible, dastardly characters that are going on the plane. It's brilliant. Cusack is really, truly in his element in this movie. It's like Cusack at his finest because he doesn't have to be an action hero because he's not a good action hero. It's just like him in Grosse Pointe Blank. You can believe that he can carry a gun and like be, competent with it. But you don't expect him to be an action hero. And so, like, he's charming in this. He's likable. You know, he's relatable. But that speech is so good. He talks about Grissom. He talks about, when he introduces Billy Bedlam and how he drives across town to kill the kid. He even kills the dog. You're just like, oh, God, how horrible. Yeah. You know,
when he talks about Diamond Dog.
Diamond Dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And then also, like, as a kid, that was the moment where I was just like, oh shit, here we go, man. This is crazy. Yeah. Look at these guys. And then like Cyrus is he's just so cool. He's untouchable.
Yeah, totally, dude. I think it's one of the more brilliant parts of the movie, actually. And I actually think that that's kind of one of the most brilliant pieces of the movie is how well they sell that to, like you said, this feels like an R-rated movie for little kids.
Yeah.
And to some degree, I would argue that that's the best part of all three of the Nic Cage movies we keep talking about. They all kind of feel that way. The Rock was my favorite movie when I was like 8 for a reason. Mm-hmm. Like everything about that movie appeals to you when you're little, right?
Yeah. So what is it? Because we always talk about Hummel. You know, we talk about him a lot. We talk about David Morse.
I can tell you other things too. Like, okay, so you talk about you're seeing all the bad guys in this movie and the way they explain everything. Mm-hmm. Think about it. The way they describe the bad guys in this movie is the way they describe VX gas and the reaction your body has.
Exactly.
It feels like the same thing. Like it's this crazy thing that you fear,
this whole thing just follows a formula,
right?
So I guess what I was gonna say, and then we'll get to your fist pump, is like, what is it about Con Air that kind of? Is it because Grissom's performance isn't as powerful as Harris's, and Grissom's is more like kind of silly and goofy because he's kind of a crazy bad guy instead of like an honorable general?
I think there's a couple. Yeah, I think, okay, first of all, he's like a bad guy, so you don't like him as much. You kind of love to hate him, but he's also not the hero. Yeah. And in some ways, Ed Harris feels a little bit like the hero of that movie because he's fighting for the honor of his fallen troops. And you see him do all the things, you know, telling the girls get back on the boat. You see him, you know, not find the missiles. You see him standing up to the mercenaries and saying they're not going to do it, right? He never really does anything in that movie that you actually think he's evil for, basically at all. He's like just the best part of the movie. God, I just want to watch The Rock tonight. And I probably just will, man. God, it's so good. I miss you so much.
I haven't watched that movie in a good amount of time, and I am so down. I've been seeing more and more stuff for like watch-alongs, and I know that's something that we used to do. I don't want to entertain the idea too much again, but like if we're when we're stuck in quarantine, the idea of doing a watch-along doesn't sound like that bad of an idea anymore.
I know. Well, we've done a watch-along for The Rock before. Is the ironic part. But...
No, I know. I mean, not for that one, but I mean, like for Mad Max, I'd love to watch Mad Max with you. You know, like
I know it'd be fun, dude. I haven't seen. So I tried to watch it on an airplane recently, and I turned it off because the small screen was too much for me. But yeah, I'll watch it on my TV here. I'll be excited about that. Okay, so
yeah, what's your fist bump? Yeah.
So every time I've watched this movie, it's usually like most movies, there's a different one. This time, for whatever reason, my fist bump moment from start to fucking finish was Diamond Dog. It was Ving Rhames. He's like for a whole multitude of reasons, and I can explain a lot of them because he's such an absurd character in this movie. Like, and the way they use him as a device is pretty obvious, right? He's in the movie, and obviously they need him to be really like powerful and smart and like a second in command. And they also set it up in a bunch of ways, like when Poe says to him the thing about why are you taking orders from like a racist white guy?
Yeah.
But like there's all these moments where like you're like, what is Diamond Dog doing? Like I caught for the first time today, I'd never seen this. When they're digging the plane out, they're trying to dig out the plane. He's whipping the other prisoners. Do you see this? he's like a slave driver. That's like,
you're like, why is this a thing? Like, why?
You're like the biggest guy here, so why are you not trying to pull the plane out? Like
you're all convicts.
There's no way any of you are pulling a fucking airplane out of the ground. I don't care if you have 20 guys. You're not pulling an airplane out of the ground. But also, you're bigger than all those guys, so why are you not helping? You're whipping them while they're trying to pull the airplane out.
Yeah, there's like these weird moments of things like that where you're just like, it feels like you guys just didn't like check this. Like there was just one rider that just sent it in. And you're like, all right, cool. Let's just take it. We'll just take it and run with it.
Okay, they see the airplanes. They see the cavalry's coming. Cyrus runs up to Ving Rhames, who's looking. He looks at him and says, how long till they get here? Ving Rhames is like 10, 12 minutes. You're like, first of all, Cyrus, you're a genius. Why are you asking Ving Rhames how long it is?
Him to figure out how long distance they're just by looking.
And why would he know and not you? You're a genius.
Yeah,
you're like an actual genius.
70 minutes.
I was like, again, like that doesn't make any sense. Who read the script and was like, that seems like a thing that he should know?
Cyrus has got everything that you need to know about this entire plane written down in a scribbled notebook built in a false wall in his prison cell, and he's like, but how far away are they?
Are the cars? Yeah. just unbelievable. That
scene is literally the locker room scene, though.
Yeah.
It's just the same scene. It's the same locker room scene. It's just it's the good guys going into the bad guys having an advantageous position and just taking them out. It's 100% what it is.
Ving Rhames in slow-mo firing off a gun is just the same thing as Tony Todd.
Yes.
As literally Tony Todd, who another like similarly bodied black guy in a similar situation with a gun shooting at people. It's like the same shot actually.
So Jeremiah Morris with a $9.99 donation here says, so not a fan of this movie and still haven't seen any of the main three. The accent, of the main three, the accent, maybe mention the accent, and how he gets thrown into prison just took me out. I wish I loved this movie like Drew did, but my fist bump would be the hair when he gets off the plane. It's
yeah.
I wrote that down. It makes no sense. He hasn't been in solitary confinement for like years. He's been in jail. You get to go outside. Like he steps outside like Wesley Snipes at the end of my favorite movie of all time, U.S. Marshals. Righteous.
No, it's Jerry. I think it's a strong point. The hair is absurd, and the hair in the wind has become one of the great gifts. That's like one of the great gifts now on Twitter is like Nic Cage with the hair. I've seen it a million times. And yeah, so I think that's got to be my fist bump moment. He just from start to finish, Diamond Dog is just like, he's also kind of cartoonish the whole time. So like by the time you get to the end credits and it shows him laughing and smiling, you're
Yeah.
like, I gotta love this
You
guy.
love Diamond Dog. He like wears the sunglasses at one point. He calls him hillbilly, but he's like nice to him. But he's obviously. I mean, that's the other thing is like the only bad guy. There's only two true bad guys in this movie, and it's Danny Trejo and Billy Bedlam. Those are the only two real bad guys. They have no redeemable qualities. Where everyone else that plays a bad guy that's in the movie for more than a couple lines, you like for the most part.
Right. Trejo is so interesting because, like, so do you remember seeing Trejo at this point in your life? Like, so 1997.
This was, I'm pretty sure, the first time I ever saw Danny Trejo. I think after this, maybe the only other time I think I would have seen him was in Desperado, but not recognized who he was yet because I just recognized him as the terrifying dude with the weird mushroom tattoo and he threw knives. But I can't remember if I saw Desperado after Con Air or before it. This was like my first like real introduction to Danny Trejo.
Okay, there's a movie that I want you to watch. I've told you about it before, and I'm just going to struggle to convince you, but I'm going to start here. It's called Point Blank. It's from 1996.
Not going to do it, Ben.
It stars Mickey Rourke. It's basically
you told me about this. Yeah,
it's the same movie as this. It's a bunch of bad guys that break out of a prison bus and hole up in a mall, and then former like badass Marine Mickey Rourke, who at this point in his career is like so jacked, so lean, and just orange. He's so tan. Has to go in and save the day. And it's way more R-rated than this. There's like tons of like horrible shit. Like Danny Trejo has a scene where he's like doing lines of coke off of like a naked, scared guard or something in a shower. It's
is
like
he a rapist
really
in that movie too?
Pretty sure, yeah. It's like, and it's within a year of this. So, but anyway, at some point I'm going to convince you to watch this movie because it feels like watching the way more R-rated cut rate version of Con Air, and I think we would laugh about it a lot. But long story short,
Danny Trejo is my favorite character.
Danny Trejo at this point in his career was like very, very menacing. And
dude, he was like he scared the shit out of me as a kid.
Yeah, and he uses it to his advantage really well. He does a lot of stuff. But the interesting thing about Danny Trejo is he's really short, and he's already pretty old at this point. Like Trejo's got to be close to 50, if not older, when he makes this movie.
I think he's probably close to 50. Yeah.
And, you know, a couple years ago, he's probably a couple years ago now, I got to interview him and hang out with him at like an after party, and he's very short. He's a small guy. He's so nice.
I've heard he's the nicest dude. Like from so many people, I've heard he is so nice.
There's zero about him that's even remotely intimidating. He's just extremely nice, and he tells a story a lot about how like he, you know, gave up drugs and alcohol, has gone sober, and it just saved his life, right? And I just wonder at what point in his life that happened. Like, I wonder if he was already totally clean and sober, but just using the menacing image at the time that he made this movie. I'd be very curious to know because like, I just don't, he's got to be one of the all-time actors that when you look at him, if you don't know the story, you're like, that guy looks like he's just a tough guy.
He just looks like a bad, mean guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and another thing, it sucks that the Chappelle show, like, did what it did to Dave Chappelle and, like, kind of made him lose his mind because, you know, I was watching with Ash, who you guys probably saw walk by a little bit earlier, and she was like, is that Dave Chappelle? And I was like, yeah, in the 90s, he was like an actor. He was like a true, like, he was a comedian turned actor. He was in a bunch of films. He starred in a few. Like, the Chappelle show was so good. It was so hilarious. And like, I think, you know, when you go and you watch him in, like, A Star Is Born, I really like Dave Chappelle and his little cutscene in there, and I love what they did with his cutscene in the trailer.
In the trailer, yeah.
But I don't know. It's one of those things where I always wonder what would have been of Dave Chappelle's actual like true acting career if he would have just stuck to it for the last 20 years instead of taking such a long break. Because I bet you he could have been like a Best Supporting Actor winner. Yeah,
he's very talented. I can think of like 4 or 5 roles from the 90s probably, right? Con Air is very famous. Half Baked is very famous. He's in You've Got Mail. He's in like 200 Cigarettes. There's like probably one other.
I forgot about that movie.
That I can think of that he shows up in. And yeah, totally, man. He is like he's just the best friend in You've Got Mail, right? That's what that is.
Is that what it is? I just can't remember. I haven't seen that movie in so long.
Or
you being
No, I think he's the best friend, or unless it's Steve Zahn.
See, You've Got Mail, Best Friend. Let's see, there's Greg Kinnear. There's Dave Chappelle and Steve Zahn are in there.
Okay, Steve Zahn works at the shop with her, and Dave Chappelle's the best friend. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, yeah, but I agree. Yeah, he was totally a character that should have been should have been bigger. So, guys, really quickly, I think we're going to go a little past 6 today because we started a couple minutes late, but we're going to take a quick break to talk to you guys about our show, The Action Guys. Tomorrow night, we have a very special episode. I mean, this is a big one for us. We have a very special guest, Matt Iceman, who is obviously the host of American Ninja Warrior and somebody who we've gotten to know through the Schmodown a little bit. Super funny, very talented host, and is excited to come on the show. So 5 to 7 tomorrow, we've got Iceman coming on. We're going to talk about his career, interview him a little bit. I'm really excited about it, and I feel very, very fortunate that he wants to come on the show.
Yeah, I mean, I feel you couldn't have said it better myself, man. He was such a nice, good dude. He is very talented, very engaging, and I'm just excited to talk to someone who is doing kind of like what we do, but doing it very, very well. So there's our lower third. We officially truly met Iceman, kind of came on his radar when he was calling that great match against Top 10. So yeah, excited to speak to Matt tomorrow at 5:00.
It's going to be super fun. Let's read a couple super chats here before we get to the next section of the show. Looks like, okay, you read the Jerry one was the last one. PLD here with the Streamlabs. This has been a great week for these movies. Jarvie and I put up The Rock versus Con Air on Class Action with help from Danny Joy. I want to rewatch both again now. These films are really the guts of action industries. I agree. That's cool. That actually premiered earlier today on the channel.
I know. I saw that, and I was like, what a great topic for our show, or for their show for us today.
And just because I didn't get to hear them, I'll quickly read through these earlier Streamlabs because I know the whole idea was for me to hear them. Lucas J. Shashek with the Streamlabs, salute. Ferris Muthana with the $10 Streamlabs, put the money back in the box.
Put the money back in the box.
Jerry M. writes, Ben Bateman sucks. Indictment sucks.
Ben Bateman sucks.
Munsung 86, too slow. I missed the first one. Bummer. Missed the first one. Bummer. Wonder what that means.
Maybe the first Streamlabs.
Okay, sure. Shashak, Lucas J. Shashak, Commander-in-Chief, 2 production notes so far. Okay, this is an audio thing. And Ash is barely noticeable on the camera with that pro ninja move.
Ash, you got shouted out in a super chat. You said you were barely noticeable with your ninja move.
Yeah, it was quick. She went in and out, and you didn't even flinch, man.
I didn't. I'm pro.
And then we have another Streamlabs here from somebody named Jeremiah Morris Sucks. And it says, Ben Bateman sucks. Can you hear me? Yes, Jerry, I can hear you.
And then the next one there says, so not a fan of this movie. And he was talking about the main 3 as in, just to clarify from earlier, he was talking about Face Off, Con Air, and
The Rock.
The Rock. So now that we are all caught up, we just got another one, a brand new donation here from Jeremiah Morris, the $5 donation, and he said, I turned off having it on the screen unless they say it out loud. That way, it's not distracting people, so that we can read through them. So and he just read, and what I meant was I haven't seen Rock or Face Off.
Wow. Oh shit! I was just saying this. It's overkill because we've said it so many times. We do this thing called the General's Bunker for 10 minutes before every stream we do. It's basically just 10 minutes on a Google Hangout, essentially, with people at the general level and above. And I was just telling Jerry in there, it's so much fun on these shows that he hasn't seen a lot of the movies that we've done. I think that's probably the case with a lot of you guys that, we started AMA 5 years ago. We didn't have any fans. We had 0 people we talked to back then. We had 7 people watching the first episode. Now it's so cool that we know all you guys, and when we do these movies again, we have people to talk to about them because these are truly our Bible of action movies. They're our favorite action movies ever made. So
yeah, legitimately.
The Rock, Jerry, is just
it's so good. If you thought Con Air was kind of silly and goofy, there's moments of The Rock that are kind of like that, but for the most part, it's just so solid. All right, so what do we got next here on the outline? Let's move through to so we talked obviously a lot about Nic Cage's career. He was in Kiss of Death in 95, leaving Las Vegas in 95, The Rock in 96. And then, Malkovich, it's an interesting role for Malkovich, right? Because he's obviously not the lead, but he is the bad guy, and he's on screen, I think, just as much, or almost as much as Cage is in this movie. Go ahead.
So Malkovich is a guy that at this point in his career, so there's a reason that the movie Being John Malkovich was written, right? There's a reason that movie exists, and it's because the idea he was this extremely intense, very blustery, very unique, not traditionally handsome character actor that would bring so much intensity and almost pretentiousness to most of his roles,
right,
that he became well known in Hollywood as this guy that could do anything. And so that's why you see him in roles around this time. Like I mentioned in The Line of Fire, which he gets the Oscar nom for in 93. But then he gets cast in this, which is a big action movie. He's obviously in Rounders, which I think is the same year or the next year after this.
Is he the bad guy in Rounders?
He's the Russian guy.
Yeah. Or something like that.
I can't think of his name right now, but yeah, he's the guy with the Oreos, and he's always doing. He's got the big accent, and then being John Malkovich, and so.
I've only seen Being John Malkovich once, and I was like 12, and it was so confusing to me. I had like no idea what the hell was going on.
It's really weird. I saw it in theaters with my dad when it came out, I remember, and it's like, I mean, Charlie Kaufman. Dude, how weird is it? Is it as weird to you as it is to me that Charlie Kaufman is as like a brand came and went? Like, not to say that like the stuff that he wrote is not amazing, because like they're all amazing. Like Eternal Sunshine is still one of my favorite movies ever made. Like Being John Malkovich is incredible. The third really good one that he did, he has the third like incredible one. What is it like? Adaptation. Yeah, that's the third of like the original really big ones. Like, and when Charlie Kaufman was in his element, like it was like a Charlie Kaufman movie's coming out. That's a big deal. He was acknowledged as like Sorkin level good. And now, what's the last Charlie Kaufman thing you can think of?
Well, we go through phases, right? Chuck Palahniuk did the same thing. Hunter S. Thompson. It's like we go through these phases where we get obsessed with writers and we just think that everything they do is brilliant. And it's because they are brilliant, but it's not everything translates greatly over from literature to film. And maybe I can't tell you why, because I enjoy his movies or his movie adaptations. It feels weird to say that.
Feels like adaptation. It would be a really, really fun episode of this show to do at some point. I haven't watched that movie in a few years, but it has so many good performances. The double Cage, Streep, Chris Cooper's so good.
Yeah, Cooper's so goddamn good. All right, so you had a great little thing that you thought up today, which was, what if Cage had continued this legendary run? Which of these next 3 movies would you put him in? And you pulled this massive list of movies.
Yeah, so we won't read the entire list because I want people to be a little surprised, but we're basically, the idea here is that, and he wins the Oscar in 95, his next 3 movies in order are The Rock, Face Off, and Con Air. And so then after that, I'm going to pull it up really quickly, but I believe Cage's next couple are Bringing Out the Dead, City of Angels, and Snake Eyes. Maybe 8 millimeters in there, I think, but it's some combination of those movies. And really, I mean, Bringing Out the Dead's a pretty like whatever Scorsese movie. Snake Eyes is pretty bad. 8 millimeters is very bad, and City of Angels is more famous for the Goo Goo Dolls music video than it is for the movie. So he doesn't really have a great next run. But what if Cage had 3 hits? So Drew, what would be your 3? What would be your 3 out of this list?
Oh,
you would
man.
pitch? You can take a minute because there's some good ones.
There's some really good ones. Well, I definitely think I have one for sure, and I'm going to say it right now. Nic Cage should have been in The Mummy. Is that Imhotep? Arakana Hashanaha.
Okay, I got my first one. I'm very excited about it.
What is it?
And this is not where it starts, but this is the one I'm going to throw in first.
Anuxinamore.
In 1999, you would have Nic Cage, and he'd be looking over at Liam Neeson, and he would say, his midichlorian count is off the charts. He would have the little rat tail and the flat top, and he would be Obi-Wan. He would be young Obi-Wan.
I actually grew this hair on my own.
Can you imagine if Nic Cage had been young Obi-Wan Kenobi?
I don't trust him.
And then if it continued on to the end,
and like right now,
you're supposed to be my brother. Woo!
Don't do it, Anakin. I have the higher ground. It's a mistake. You were my brother. I love that. God, that's a good one. I don't know if I can top that one. What if? Okay. All right. Let's think. What if he was in? Oh, dude, no questions. If he's the shit weasel in U.S. Marshals instead of Downey.
Yeah, I was thinking that. That's why I put that one down there.
That was good.
That was a plant to try to convince you, because I figured you might see that and go for it because you love that movie so much.
So good.
I'm glad you went for it.
It was a phantom shot. Oh wait, no, that's a different.
That's just Snake Eyes.
Yeah, dude. And don't get me wrong, I love Brendan Fraser in The Mummy, and I love The Mummy, but like Cage in there would have been so good. Yeah, I'm sticking to it. I'm going with it. Cage, 100%.
So my next one is, and this is going to be another good one, another big action hit. So in 1997, when they're filming this and they're deciding, you know what, we're going to change the source material, we're going to recast, and Mr. Nic Cage is going to be Blade. He's going to wear the sunglasses, he's going to wear the trench coat, and he's going to end the movie by saying, "Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill."
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill, Steven. Don't smoke cigarettes. That's. I like thought about it, but the idea of a white Blade and it being Nic Cage,
it's offensive.
It's offensive, but it's the 90s, so it's wonderful. It's funny because I see people saying Nic Cage in The Matrix. You have that on the list here as well. I think I am gonna go. Oh no, I just had it. Oh no, I just had it and I lost it.
Dude, I can jump in with my third one if you want, because it's fucking brilliant. My third one is that you replace Matthew Broderick in Inspector Gadget, and Nic Cage is Inspector Gadget. And this is his so this is perfect because Nic Cage has, obviously Blade is an R-rated movie. He's got the Star Wars IP, which he's a big nerd, so it makes total sense. And then he's got kind of a kids movie in Inspector Gadget, but it's action adventure, so it's still exciting. And it's a precursor to his National Treasure, that kind of vibe that he ends up going with later. And Gadget has the same hair. He's got the Sorcerer's Apprentice Cameron Poe hair.
All right, so I know what mine is now. I know which one it was. It's Nic Cage replacing Tom Sizemore in Saving Private Ryan.
Ooh, that's a really good one. A
real one. I think he could have killed it, dude. And then his death, because come on. I know you've seen Wind Talkers. You've seen what the man can do with a gun.
So he's not in. So he's in Wind Talkers and he's in Captain Corelli's Mandolin, right?
Love
but he's
it.
not in Thin Red Line.
No,
he's not.
That's
He's one of
Pitt,
the only actors that's
right?
not in that movie. No, it's everybody. I think it's
Oh no, I'm thinking of Spy Game.
yeah. He could have just as easily been in Thin Red Line because it's just a bunch of actors for a minute. Cusack's in it, Woody Harrelson's in it, Clooney's in it, Nolte's in it.
I was actually I'm glad you just said Cusack because I kind of forgot it. So do we have any more? Or those are 3 each.
Well, the one thing I wanted to say is that I think that with Inspector Gadget, he gets to say, "Go Gadget arms,
Go Gadget arms." God damn it!
Go Gadget legs.
Wait, who's the love interest in that movie?
I don't know. That's the fact that I could remember Broderick was even in it.
For some reason, I want to say Leslie Mann, but I feel like that's wrong. I want to know. I need to know now. So what I wanted to say was but what happened to John Cusack's career?
Yeah, so this is actually interesting, and I can speak to this a little bit because I think it's not that different from Matthew Broderick. They're kind of they're in almost similar territory in the sense that they were both these off the beaten path sort of extremely charming versions of each other in the mid 80s, right? Like Bueller's Day Off in 86 is obviously an all-time teenager movie.
Yeah.
And Say Anything is just a few years later. Cusack kind of gets his same one, but he's also in Better Off Dead, so he has that late 80s run. And as the 90s hit, they both were in movies people liked. Grosse Point Blank is very famous. High Fidelity was a big deal for John Cusack.
Yeah.
Broderick's in Godzilla. Their 90s are both pretty strong. But by the time we got to the 2000s and they started to kind of age out of the younger charming guy and they had to play the late 40s, 50-year-old confident guy, the world was just sort of I don't really care. You aren't charming in this. You don't eat that youthful exuberance, that real youthful cool thing. I mean, I heard they were talking on Rewatchables with Bueller's Day Off that in some interview Broderick was I just seem to end up playing these scared, broken, middle-aged older men.
Yeah.
Now. And he's I don't really get to play the cool guy like Ferris anymore. And I think Cusack, it feels kind of similar. What's the last Cusack role you can think of where you were man, he just is commanding in that. He really just steals the show.
Wasn't it supposed to be Good Night and Good Luck or something? But is
He's
he even
not
that
in
good in
that.
that? Or not that. It's one that comes out right around there.
Let me look up because I'm trying to think back. I remember watching Runaway Jury in theaters.
It's funny because the only movies that I really think about Broderick in anymore are I think Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and then I think about The Cable Guy.
Right.
That's what I think of.
That's really funny you say that because they talk about it on the show. They say like the next really major big Broderick role after Bueller, it feels like, is the Cable Guy, where he is kind of like this weird middle-aged scared guy.
Mhm.
That's kind of who he is in that movie.
That's exactly what he is.
Yeah, if you go look at Cusack, dude, like
Yeah, I'm looking at his career right now. I'm trying to think of the movie that I was thinking of.
okay, so the last one that came out that I can remember was like a big movie that he starred in was 2012. That's like a big time, lots of money type of movie. It's
I mean, Hot Tub Time Machine ended up being pretty big too. That movie's like really, really adored. It wasn't huge when it came out, but people really liked that movie.
and it's the same. Yeah, it's the same within a year. So it's been a decade since he was, and even that though, we're reaching with those two because like he has that 1 year there. But if you go back before that, it's really not. Yeah, dude, it's back to like 2000. It's basically he does High Fidelity, America's Sweetheart, Serendipity, Identity, Runaway Jury.
Yeah,
Like that's max. That's like his 4 or 5 there, about just after the turn of the century. It does. I mean, as you and I have talked about many times, when I interviewed him, he was not my favorite to interview.
Yeah.
All that charm and magic that I expected to be there was just definitely not there.
Yeah, that's a bummer. I'd forgotten that you'd interviewed Cusack, and it's probably because of your experience while doing it. So, yeah, it's interesting. You know, I don't. When you watch Cusack, you kind of miss him, but then when you think about it, you're kind of okay with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I mean,
yeah, I don't know.
well, because right, like you and I have said this many times, but if you go look at someone's career, like one of these stars that we really loved, the run is, if you get 10 good years, like 10 really good years, that's a pretty big win, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And with Cusack, it does feel like he got a little longer. He got like the late 80s all the way through that, probably 2001, 2002. So like he gets like 10 solid years of movies. And, Cage is kind of similar. Cage has gotten longer. Cage was relevant from like probably like 87 to like 90 to like 06. He got like 20 years, 20 really, really legit years.
Yeah, so do you want to talk at all about Simon West, or do we want to kind of breeze through it? Because we only got a little bit left of the show.
Yeah.
A little bit long, but yeah, do you want to talk about him at all?
I think the thing about Simon West that people would probably find the funniest is that he directed the Rick Astley video for Never Gonna Give You Up.
Yeah.
That's like probably the funniest part about his career.
Well, yeah, and then also that this is his first movie. Those are two pretty...
Totally.
I mean, not only is that music video hilarious, but this being your very first movie is, it's a pretty big deal.
Totally, man. He ended up doing like Lara Croft Tomb Raider. His career, it went on, and he did some other stuff that was interesting. Like he ends up doing like the second Expendables movie, and there's some other stuff in there where he was getting action jobs.
Yeah.
But definitely not a guy who really ended up going. Like I would bet you at this point, Con Air has become such a cult classic for people that when he meets people, like actors, anybody, that's the movie that he get like people like, oh my god, he directed Con Air. Like it's the guy that directed Con Air. Everybody loves that movie. Like I'll bet you that's got to be the conversation.
Oh no, what did I do? There we go.
What happened?
Nothing. Just don't worry about it, man. Just don't worry about it. Don't even think about it. Nothing.
Go gadget computer.
Go gadget arms.
So yeah, critical box office. You want to throw in here on these and just breeze through them?
Yeah, so $75 million produced by Buena Vista, summer movie released in June of 1997, and it made a lot of money. 101 million domestic, 122 worldwide, for a grand total of $224 million. But yeah, it got a 6.8 on IMDb. The critics gave it a 31% on Rotten Tomatoes, and audience gave it a 75%. So it makes sense. Critics probably, gave 3 out of 10 of them were like, all right, this movie's fine, but it makes sense that 7 out of 10 people were like, all right, I had a great time. I'd watch that again.
Yeah, that's what I would have done, man.
Yeah, I think it's fair. What would you, if you went and saw a movie like this today, and obviously let's say it was like kind of updated for today's version of like a bad or like a popcorn action movie, what would you have given Con Air? Like a 6?
Like if we're just going to see Con Air and it's like all modern effects and stuff, and we're screening it to give it a review, I would give it. I mean, if it had like, okay, so the equivalent would be like somebody I love as much as I love Cage in their prime.
Yeah.
Let's say it's Jackman and going in and doing like a pikey accent, like something just like way like a really thick, ridiculous accent, or like a really silly Southern accent. And it's good. Like he's good in this. Like he's convincingly ridiculous.
It's a very good accent.
I might give it like an 8. Like I might give it
Wow.
like a, not because I think it's like an 8 quality, but like because I would be like, this stands so far above its competition. It was so entertaining.
Yeah.
It's trying to be this movie. Like this movie almost gets to be totally legitimate because like I think it's trying to be this. I don't think this movie is doing much of the stuff like on accident. They make the decision to land a fucking airplane on the Vegas Strip. They had to write that into a script and agree we're going to convince ourselves and try to film this in a way that it actually makes sense.
It's gonna work.
You know?
Yeah, they definitely try to end the movie like 3 times. That's one thing that's kind of I'm okay with. But
you know that thing that happens when you're pretty drunk and it's pretty late and you're watching a movie and you wake up the next day and you're like, I think I finished the movie. And you're like, I'm pretty sure I finished the movie.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I better turn it on and just see if I did finish the movie. And then it's like the movie's over and you're like, but how did it end? And like, like I feel like the ending of this movie is quintessential, but how did it end? Because the final 12 minutes like just doesn't need to be in the movie at all.
No, none. I mean, like just the one ending. I mean, honestly, if the plane crash, they could have just ended it there. But I get that you need the final showdown between like Cage and Cyrus, and you have to deal with all the villains one by one. But the problem is when you spend that much time like trying to make each villain death good, the best one, honestly, is like Trejo. You don't even see him, but then when they like take him off the plane, his arm is hanging, and you're like, "Ew, God, that's gnarly," you know?
Yeah, totally.
Whereas like Cyrus goes through like the side of a building and is like kind of okay, but then he gets his head smashed.
I think this movie is overly long. I think it's just an unnecessary. Like the ending is just dumb. But honestly, that's like a thing, right? That's a hallmark of '90s action movies. Speed does it. I would actually argue that the ending of Point Break is one of the great. It's one of the great endings. Like it gets to like time jump and have like a sweet showdown on the beach. Like it doesn't deal with
and it's not like some dumb like hand-to-hand combat or something. It's just I agree. I think she ended up like really nicely.
Yeah, like Lethal Weapon has that stupid fight at the end. Like it's
Whoa. Did you see the rain? Did you see Busey's teeth?
I love also that in what's it called? Dumb and Dumber. They like kind of poke fun at that idea when Lloyd has his like fantasy of shooting the boyfriend. It literally looks like it's a scene.
He got a gun! Look out! No!
It's like that feels like it's the ending of one of these movies.
Yeah,
like it totally does.
That's actually really funny that you say that. It is like perfectly edited for one of those. Yeah. So I used to work at Blockbuster, and there's something that we always talk about with these movies, which is like the I got fired from Blockbuster moment. But since this movie's kind of so goofy, I feel like you could actually probably get away with it if you looked away enough. But there is the one moment where if you're like talking to someone and all of a sudden they get kind of distracted by the TV and they look over and they look back at you and they just go, "What the fuck is that?" And you go, I don't know. I should have turned that on. Which scene is it, man?
Well, because sometimes it's like graphic nudity,
or violence, really, like super violence.
Yeah, or like you're showing like Unfaithful, and there's just some basically like softcore porn on TV with Diane Lane. But like in this movie, it's definitely just mom's in there, she's got her 8-year-old daughter, she's looking for a nice film to bring home for the family, and she sees Steve Buscemi sitting there singing. He's got the whole world in his hands with a Barbie doll in his hand with this little girl. And it keeps cutting back to the girl in this just really like creepy
singing
way.
And saying, you're just like, trust me, this movie's totally cool. It's totally cool. She's like, I need you to speak to your manager.
And it's like cutting back to Buscemi, and he's like looking at her, and he's singing. It's like, this is creepy. There's no way this ends well, but it does somehow.
It somehow does. And honestly, the craziest thing in the whole thing about this movie is that in the 90s, we were okay with essentially Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy getting away because he was nice to one girl and nice to Nic Cage on a plane. They're like, let's just let him go to Vegas at the end, and like no one recognizes him even though he has no mask on, and he is literally our Ted Bundy and Dahmer. He's like that guy.
Yeah, I mean
he's Garland Green,
also,
man.
He has some really, really good lines too. He's got the line where he's like, "I wore her head like a hat," and Cage is like, "It's my daughter's birthday today."
Well, that's perfect line or perfect moment for favorite line, because he actually I think has my favorite line also.
Buscemi does?
Yeah. Do you want to go with yours? Or you want me to go with mine?
Oh, dude, there's so many in this movie. It's hard.
So many good ones.
I mean, basically every single thing that Cage says in the movie about Trisha. I mean, just like him just saying, "Dear Hummingbird," like that alone, it should be like on a plaque on my fucking wall.
What about when he's learning Spanish in prison and he's like, "En el yate, por favor." I was like, what the fuck is happening? But, and there's one line, even as a kid, I was like, this line does not work. And that's when Sandino or whatever is like, Sai Anara. It's like, how that would be like me being like, Beh. Nah.
Dude. Also, like, and I've read about this before, the whole, like, cigarette or flipping a lighter onto gasoline thing doesn't work, is what I've always understood. In real life, if you try to do that, the cigarette hits the ground and I think doesn't burn, like, or something, or maybe it's only with a lighter or on impact. But I've heard this before, that like scientists on like Mythbusters are just like, it doesn't work. You
never
can't flip
worked.
them, and it won't light on fire. Can you imagine if Cyrus like flips the cigarette and it just like lands on the ground and everybody's just like sitting around waiting, and Cyrus is like, fuck it, then just shoots him and he walks away.
But I do have to say, I think the only like actual line that's kind of brilliant when you're listening to it, you're like, oh, is the he's like, define irony. Bunch of idiots jump around on a plane listening to a song that was written by a band that died in a plane crash.
Yeah, it's also like really funny that they just like, it's a bunch of like crazy psychopaths that seem to like each other and have like prejudice only in the most convenient moments. They have like the prisoner, like the guy who puts on the dress and is dancing, and all of the other prisoners are like totally cool with it, not making any fun of him or being like at all difficult.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know if I really believe that this is what would be happening. But then again, I guess I've never been in prison, so I don't really know.
Have you not been?
Yeah.
Is this your moment where you want to tell people?
So anyway, I think there's a lot of great lines. I mean, obviously people probably want to just have us agree that it's put the money back in the box.
Put the money back in the box.
That's another one of those ones where like you're writing a script and you're just like, I mean, is there any way we can have like an actor say this line with any seriousness? Because the answer has to be no.
I feel like Cage can do it. Cage can do it.
Cage can do anything.
Robert Adams says not enough heat from the cigarette to ignite the gas. So yeah, I love that finally they were just like, we just can't do this anymore. Mythbusters ruined it for action movies for the rest of eternity. We can no longer flick something to explode a building unless it's Zoolander.
There's also like multiple cool guy walking away from explosions moments in this movie.
Oh yeah,
right. Like in the airfield when shit's blowing up and Malkovich is just like at the front of the group and like the rest of the guys are trailing behind him, but Cyrus is just like cool guy walking.
What about Danny Trejo's really cool guy walking when they're in the entire firefight and then it's just like showing him going to go attack the woman tied up in the airplane? You're just like, what? Why is this a cut? It's just like him walking with flames behind him with his shirt off, and you're just like, oh god,
gross, man. That's not a cool thing to do.
Not age well. This character
like
does not need to be here.
It's also totally R-rated movie for little kids because like he goes into the plane and you're watching and you're like, basically you're like, there's zero way this is actually going to get graphic or ugly. Mm-hmm. Somebody is definitely going to save the day. Yeah, and Danny Trejo's about to get his ass kicked, and also nothing graphic happens. He doesn't like tear open her shirt or like do anything where as a kid you'd be like, oh, mom would be like, this is too much. He like literally kind of gets in the cell, gets a little aggressive, gets slapped, and he gets his ass kicked by Cameron Poe. Yeah. And then he gets his comeuppance, and even Cyrus has his like code of conduct, which actually is something that I've heard about in prison anyway. But that's actually a great line too. He's like, you're somewhere between a cockroach and that stuff that forms on the side of your mouth when you're really thirsty. That's a good line. Great one, yeah. All right, man. So I think that covers everything on the show except for just for a couple things. One thing, really. There's one last thing left to call, and it's called the pitch. All right, good every time. It's good. It's very good. I'm very excited about this one. Yes, next week we're going to be doing Mad Max Fury Road. This was the first big episode of Action Movie Anatomy we ever did. Yep. It was a lot of fun. It's a great movie. We saw this in theaters, and we're so excited to talk about it. So I haven't gone back to rewatch it since, and I can't wait. I think this is going to be a really fun one. Remember, guys, if you want to call in, we have room for 2 generals on every single show. So just remember, if you're watching this and you want to be a part of the show, just send your submission in on Patreon. Just direct message us. If you're a general or above, that is one of your perks, is that you get to call into these episodes. So we'd love to have you on the show. Yeah. And I'm really excited. Remember, tomorrow at 5 p.m., we're going to have Matt Eisman, host of American Ninja Warrior,
all-around cool guy on the show tomorrow. Very, very excited about it. We'll be doing that one through StreamYard, so hopefully there won't be any difficulties. And yeah, man, I think it was a great show. I'm really excited to cover Mad Max Fury Road next week because
Me too.
It's honestly, I know we love Con Air and I know we love Point Break, but this is one of those movies where a lot of people might actually argue it's the greatest movie of all time instead of just you and me.
I mean, a lot of people think it's the best movie of the last decade. So, and that's that's documented. So I can't wait to talk about it. Remember, guys, we have the general debate coming up week after next in May, the first episode. Get excited. We'll do probably like a video to explain exactly what it is separately so that it's up and people can get really hyped on it. But if you want to be a part of the first episode, send in an email to Action Industries Brand or DM us on Patreon. But we have 2 spots available still for the very first episode, which is what is the greatest moment in MCU history. Yeah. And it's just you debating on a show like this against other people, other members of the Action Army. So we'll explain more of it later, but send in your submissions if you want to be a part of it. Greatest moment in the history of the MCU. Yeah,
I'm excited. Got a great thumbnail there. We already got 2 generals submitted for it. They picked some good moments. Well, one of them told us their moments. So I'm very excited. It's gonna be a great night, and it's gonna be, it's gonna be. If you guys ever saw what we did before with Commanding the Army, it's gonna kind of be like that with a bit of a facelift. So. I think that's going to do it for us today, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you so much for your donations, and for what was it, hanging out with Rupert, I believe is his name, Rupert the Australian.
Yes.
Hopefully you'll be able to hear it next time there, Bateman.
Yeah, I hope so, man. I did get to hear some of them. I listened back, but let's rattle off these generals and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Commanders-in-Chief Lucas and Alex Shashek, big time salute to the 2 of you. We got our 5-star generals, one of whom is an upgrade since last time we heard, which is AJ Lancaster and Ferris Mathana. Those are both 5-star upgrades in the last week, plus Cody Seal, Jake Iacovetta, John Getz, Mac Ryan, and Paul Denuzio. Salute. And I'll do a couple of these generals, and I'll pass back to you. We got Alec Romley-Young, Andrew Hayes, Brandon Buckingham, Brandy Parker, Danny Joyce, Danny Cost, David B., Eric Ritz.
No, it's Cost. It's Cost.
It is Cost.
It is Cost.
Right. David B., Eric Ritz, Philip Gustafson, Garth McMurray, Jeff Alterman, Glenn Caesar. Go ahead, Drew.
And a big shout out to Garth McMurray. He was actually going to come on the show, but he wasn't feeling well. So, Garth, we hope you're feeling better, my good friend. Picking up from Glenn Caesar, we got Jeremiah Morris, John Patterson, Josh Ryan, Carl Newell, Kelsey Kirkland, Lindsay and Larry Payne, Liam Gilpin, Luke M. Haynes, Matty Gunner, Michael Deacon, Nick Gilmore, Oscar Romo, Pardis, Jesse Dawson, Pat Wolfamonte, Patrick Gibson, Sadi Lamanmaki, Stephen Anderson, Tharshi Shri, Tim Etheridge, and Zach McDonald. Big time salute to all you generals, guys. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for your patience today as we were trying to figure out stuff early on today. We'll have to kind of figure out those kinks. Ben, I can tell you how to fix your camera. I figured it out, so we'll figure that out as well with the light. But yeah, big time salute. See you guys tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
Bye, guys.
Bye.